I know you've been waiting for this season. This is one of the most magical seasons that we have in the 5 seasons of connection because it doesn't exist in the world. It's something that I created to understand how we transition between all of them. And it's called the Crossroads. And so when you think about a crossroads on the road, you come to a place in which you need to decide. Do you go this way or this way? It is an option that kind of squeezes you along and forces you to make a decision one way or the other. You cannot continue on the path. You have to diverge into a new space. And so the Crossroads and the 5 seasons of connection is really the time in which you decide. Are you going back to winter? Here's an interaction with your child. Are you going to go down this path and create a place of conflict or exert power and control or domination? Are you going to withhold something, either privileges or affection? Or are you going to go this way? Are you going to lead them back to summer? Are you going to hold space and grace for them? Are you going to forgive them for something that had happened and allow them to learn from their mistake? Are you coming from a place of love and connection and wanting to stay in close partnership with them? That is the Crossroads. And so when we think of the Crossroads, it really is a time to choose. What might you be feeling? Well, you might be torn between reacting, which is very much a winter response, and responding, which is very much a summer response. You might be anxious about which path to take because on the one hand, you are angry or your hot button has been pushed and you want to jump in and do all the things. But on the other hand, you know that's not the high road. You know that's not the place of learning and growing and teaching and guiding. So you might be torn for your own response. You might be emotionally on edge, right? So if you are in a conflict with your child, if they have taken you to that edge, you might be very close to just unfurling your anger or your frustration. You might become very emotional. You might cry or panic. It could push you to the edge. So the Crossroads is really at that moment on that edge. You might feel impatient to get through something, so you just want to rush it and hurry it and get through it because it's uncomfortable. And that's very true, right? The Crossroads is a place where discomfort can live because you have to make a choice and you have to decide which direction you're going. And that uncertainty and that do I go with my instinct or do I go with my rational thinking is a place of discomfort for sure. And you want to make a good decision, but sometimes you're just stuck. And that's totally reasonable. The Crossroads is a place for that, of course. Now, when your child is at the crossroads, they might feel very unsettled about what to do next. And they might actually try to force a decision to be made, right? So it isn't just enough that they don't know what to do. If they see you don't know what to do, they might force you and push you to make a decision faster. They might be anxious about the outcome either way. They don't know how something is going to unfold, and they're just super anxious about what that looks like. So they're going to show up as scattered or rattled, right? They just are very unsettled. And of course, in some families, these kids are going to be worried about the fallout. Like if we go back to winter, if I push too far and my parent unleashes a winter storm here, oh my gosh, what does that look like, right? What did I just do, right? So then there's guilt and responsibility for pushing you too far. So the Crossroads is a very complex place. And really, it just is about understanding the power of choice. We might hit the crossroads 10, 20, 30 times a day, depending on how often you interact with your kids. But all interactions approach the crossroads multiple times. Anytime there's an interaction, you have a choice to go back to winter or to bring them to summer. And it could just be something very small and innocuous, or it could be them bringing some kind of big thing to the table and you having to decide. Either way, the crossroads is there for big decisions and for little things. Anytime you have to choose how you're going to respond, which is virtually every time you talk with your child, you're going to be at a crossroads. So the lesson here, the activity for us, is to harness the power of the crossroads, to understand in that moment where you get to choose the path to summer or the path to winter, which one do you choose? Now, sometimes you are going to choose the path to winter, and that is just the way it is. You might think it's a great idea at the time and regret it later, or you might think it's a great idea at the time and still think it's a great idea. It depends on the situation, of course. But for the most part, I want to encourage you to take the path to summer. I want to encourage you to lead them back to love and to lead them back to connection, to have open lines of communication so that when something happens, they know and trust and feel secure in your relationship that you are not going to come undone, right? So when they know that, the lines will stay open. That circuit that we talked about before, the communication circuit, will continue because they know and trust that when they bring an issue to you and you stand there and you get to decide A or B, you're going to lead with love. So let's take a real world example. Let's say your child comes home late from curfew. And this is an example in the 5 Seasons of Connection book. And so in this instance, a child came home from being out with her boyfriend, and she was past her curfew time. And she walked in the house, and the crossroads was a momentary blip in the mother's mind. She unfurled this massive storm. How irresponsible the daughter was, how worried she was, how frantic she was that the daughter didn't text or call. How dare she do this? Her privileges have been revoked forever. The mother was massively in a blizzard. The child didn't even get 2 words out, was sent to her room. The mother was up all night, sick with fear and regret and shame and worry and anger, and how dare she be so defiant. Well, then the doorbell rings the next morning, and the boyfriend's mother is there with a plant. And the mother opens the door and is very surprised to see the boyfriend's mother outside. And she said, "Oh, these are for your daughter." And the mother was like, "Why are you bringing my daughter flowers? Like, what? Why would you do this?" And then the boyfriend's mother told her the story. The story, if this might make me cry, the story is that the girlfriend and the boyfriend were watching a movie at the boyfriend's house. And then the boyfriend started to throw up. He just got sick all of a sudden. He ran to the bathroom and he was throwing up. The mother didn't want to leave him alone, but the daughter couldn't drive. So the mother was going to have to drive the daughter home and then come back and take care of her own son. So she was doing it quickly. So she was rushing the daughter out. The daughter forgot her phone in the house. On the way to her house, they got into a car problem. And so the tire blew, they're on the side of the road, they're stuck, nobody has a phone, the son is at home throwing up, and the mother is at her house frantic that the daughter is late for curfew, right? So in this moment, there's so much going on. Talk about spotlighting. Remember we talked about that earlier. This mother spotlighted so intensely, she did not see the whole picture. So now she's got the boyfriend's mother standing at the door with the flowers, and the whole picture comes into view. And she just thinks, oh my gosh, I spotlighted so intently, I did not even think that other things could have happened. I just saw my daughter missed curfew. And so nothing else mattered. And she felt horrible. She felt horrible about unleashing this blizzard on her poor child who had just been ripped out of this house, leave her phone, the boyfriend's throwing up, they got into this little car problem, they had to change a tire. I mean, it was so much, and the mother just did not stop at the crossroads. So that's what we're going to practice today. I want you to think about a time in which you really were at a moment that you had to make a decision about how you were going to respond. Or maybe think of a time in which you didn't know that you could make a decision and you just reacted, right? Because in those times, that means a hot button was pushed. You were at the edge of what you could be doing. You were so exhausted or stretched so thin that one extra straw sent the whole house of cards crumbling down. Either way, think about those moments in which conflict arises in your relationship with your child, and then think about what was the path to winter and what could have been the path to summer, and really spell it out. Because it's only when we start shining a light on these areas that we can really say, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see it like that, and now I do. Because once you know better, you do better. Thank you, Maya Angelou, right? Once you know better, you do better. So that mother, I can promise you that mother will never open the door and unleash a blizzard on her daughter ever again, because she knows better, right? She understands the power of the crossroads and deciding, if I want to go back to summer with my child, what does that mean? It might mean that we take a time out. It might mean that I start asking some questions and gathering more data, because I'm on the edge of winter, I'm ready to unleash a storm, and I need to double check some stuff. So I'm going to ask some questions. And maybe you write down the questions that you need to ask. Maybe there are some standard questions like, can you tell me what happened? Or from your point of view, how do you see things? Right? These very open-ended questions might give you a new glimpse into not only your child's motivation, but what happened in that moment where then you were put up against the possibility of returning to winter with them. They might tell you something and you think, I didn't even know you were worried about that. I didn't even know you knew about that. I didn't even know you were thinking about that. I didn't even know you were experiencing that. And it changes everything, because now you see the whole picture. So on this slide, write down your path to winter and a path to summer, and just give yourself a framework for making those decisions in those moments. So what did we learn in Module 5? When we were at the crossroads, we learned, how do I typically make decisions? If you typically react and explode and kind of have this massive outburst and then clean up the mess afterwards, go and apologize afterwards, or check in with everyone afterwards, that's a sign, right? That you are not stopping at the crossroads. You are going right to winter. How does your child typically make decisions, right? That's the next piece of this. How do they know? And trust me, decision making does come easier for some people than others, but it is a learned skill. Learning how to make a decision is really gauging the pros and the cons, right? In the 5 seasons world, it's what is the path to winter? What is the path to summer? And what does it mean for me to make either of those decisions? So I'm going to imagine what's going to happen if I choose winter, and then I'm going to imagine what's going to happen if I choose summer, and then I'm going to make the better choice, right? Sometimes winter is the better choice, and we can go on and on and on about examples of why that's true, but almost always you will need to spring clean a lot if you choose that path, right? You cannot just go down into winter and then find yourself back in summer. There will be spring cleaning that needs to happen. So really, choosing the path to summer when you're at the crossroads means you are building stronger connections. The bridges to each other, the bridge that you build to your child is stronger, and it's more intact, and it's more reliable, right? Because if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, security is at the bottom. It is a foundational need that your child and all of us feel safe and secure before they can get to the next level. They can't even think about some of the other things in their life if they feel fundamentally unsafe, right? So just understanding what the crossroads means allows you to choose. I am going to decide what to do here. That might take me 5 minutes. That might take me 3 days, right? But as we make more decisions and we quickly process, oops, summer path, winter path, summer path, winter path, summer path, we can get faster at it because it is a learned skill. So I hope that you enjoyed the crossroads. It is such a place of power that I am so grateful to have shared with you, and I look forward to the next module where we dive into the elements of awareness because we've wrapped up the seasons. We now have all the seasons done. We know all 5 of them, who we are, how we show up, who our kids are, how they show up, and the intersection of all of those. What are the things that push us into winter? What are the spring cleaning strategies that get us out of the cold darkness and into that beautiful summer relationship? We know what are some of the things that creep up when we're not paying attention, those little fall weeds. And we know we have the power of choice. So now we get to see what comes next.